All right, let's take a look at the second half of chapter 17, the uses of the subjunctive. Um, Duff sets them out in seven different constructions. I know there's been other sections where I've said, ooh, I don't like the way Duff does that. I actually really like the way he goes over the subjunctive. So we're definitely going to follow this here. There are two where it's used frequently, and then there's others where it's less frequent. Although I will say at the very end, conditionals, that's not infrequent, but it's an important use of the subjunctive that Duff is saving for chapter 20, which is great. It's a really good thing to do on its own. So let's look at the uses of the subjunctive that are here in chapter 17. Notice, first of all, we only have two tenses. We have the present and the aorist, and they function just like they do for infinitives and imperatives. The aorist is the normal tense for a subjunctive, and if the author wants to emphasize that this is an ongoing thing, then the author will use the subjunctive present tense. So the first of the two most common uses is an indefinite clause. This is translated often in English with the word ever. In Greek, it's going to have the subjunctive and this on word. Now, the word on in Greek, alpha nu with a smooth breathing mark, doesn't get translated in English. But it signals you in Greek that there's something indefinite, unsure, uncertain. It's a possibility. This sense of maybe in the sentence. Again, we don't translate it, but it does add to the meaning of the Greek. So when we see a relative clause with hos, for example, who, if there's an on with the subjunctive, we're going to perhaps translate it as whoever. I hope this was clear. On doesn't mean anything in English. There's no one word. It's not like pistis that means faith. There's no English word that on means. That doesn't mean we're not going to pay attention to the on in our translation. And sometimes the best way to pay attention to that is to express this sense of indefiniteness in English by adding ever. So hos plus on plus the subjunctive is may be expressed by whoever. Hopu is just where, but with on in the subjunctive, it might be best expressed as wherever. And hote is when, but hotan plus the subjunctive might be translated as whenever. Notice that when hote has the on after it, the two join together and you get hotan. In Mark 3:35, we have this example, hos an poiese, whoever does the will of God. Matthew 6:6 with hotan proseuche, but whenever you pray. And Revelation 14:4 with hopu an hypage, wherever he goes. Now, sometimes instead of on, you'll find ean. Colossians 3:23 is an example of that. Ho ean poiete, whatever you do. And sometimes when the meaning of the sentence is indefinite in Greek, it translates into something that isn't the way we normally speak in English. So Matthew 6:6 means whenever you pray, but might be translated when you pray. When it happens that you pray, then do this. Similarly, Mark 6:10 means remain until ever you leave, but in English we would probably just say remain until you leave. So that's the first way that the subjunctive is used, and that on word will be a clue for you. The other way that subjunctive is used is in a purpose clause. And here, the word that's going to make you think, ooh, there might be a subjunctive coming is the word hina. So we've already seen that we can express purpose with just an infinitive. At the top of page 193, we have Eilthen grapsai biblion. She came to write a book. It's just an infinitive. But you can also use hina with the subjunctive. And if you want to say the purpose is a negative purpose, so as not to, something like that, we're going to use may with the subjunctive. And sometimes hina may just by itself. So John 8:59, we get hina balosin, in order that they might throw. Matthew 7:1, we get hina me krithete, in order that you might not be judged. So here we have hina me. And Philippians 1:9, hina he agape humon periseu e, that your love may overflow. Now, it's important to understand that we can think of infinitive clauses in Greek and translate them as infinitive clauses in English. And we can think of hina clauses in Greek and translate them as in order that clauses in English. But it doesn't have to be one-on-one correspondence. There's two ways to express purpose clause in Greek. There's two ways to express purpose clauses in English. Maybe there's even four if you divide it the way Duff has. And as long as you are taking a purpose clause in Greek and expressing it as purpose in English, they don't have to match up form-wise. So when we get that first example in John 8:59, hina balosin, we might translate that in order that they might throw. That would be like a hina clause. It would look like a hina clause in English. But we can also just translate it as to throw. In order to throw is another way to say it in English, or so that they might throw. So don't feel like in this case the two kinds of constructions in Greek have to match up exactly to the kinds of construction in English. As long as you're recognizing purpose in Greek and translating it as purpose in English, you're good. Hapos plus subjunctive occasionally replaces hina plus subjunctive as a purpose clause. So those are the two most common ways to use subjunctive. We have the halfway practice next, and we'll do that together. But let's take a couple minutes and look at the rest of the reasons for using the subjunctive in Greek. So the first one is called the hortatory subjunctive. This is for exhortations, and it's always in the first person plural. So I said that there's usually a word in the Greek that kind of clues you in. Ooh, I should be watching for a subjunctive here. Here, there's no word, but it is first person plural. And because of that lengthening vowel, it's always going to be omen. So that omen ending is going to clue you in to think, oh, this could be a subjunctive. And let me watch for that here. So Mark 4:35 is diel thomen, let us go. Romans 14:19, diokomen, let us pursue. Hebrews 10:22, proserkometha, let us approach. In some languages, it'd be interesting to find out how some of the other languages that you speak would say this. In English, I think it's a little bit, it's not very elegant because we have to use this let us phrase. But a lot of languages have this idea of just the way we can tell somebody else, go, we can tell ourselves, go. But when it's pointed back at ourselves, at our group of people, in some languages, there's a first person plural version of the imperative. And in some languages, there isn't. And in English, there isn't. So we have to use this let us construction to express it. In Greek, we're going to see that there is actually a third person plural imperative, but the subjunctive is also used to do this, where we have a first person plural. So depending on the second person plural imperative we've seen, we're going to see third person plural imperative. This is for first person plural. When we're telling ourselves as a group to go do something, Greek uses the subjunctive. The next not as frequent use of the subjunctive is deliberation. The deliberative subjunctive, this is where the speaker is asking a question. What do I do? So that's going to be the clue when you find a question, is to ask, wait, is this a subjunctive question or not? Luke 3:10, poie somen, what then should we do? So if it was an indicative form, if it was present, it would be, what am I doing? If it was future, it would be, what will I do? If it was aorist or imperfect, it would be, what was I doing, or what did I do? But here we have the subjunctive, and we have this sense of deliberation about the best possible option. So what should we do? Hebrews 11:32, we have let go here, which is, and what more should I say? Romans 6:15, we have harmatotesomen, should we sin? So that's the deliberation, the deliberative subjunctive. Subjunctives can also be used in prohibitions. So here we have, this is also related to the imperative. So if we have an imperative present, that's going to emphasize the process, right? Don't be doing this. Don't start doing this. Don't repeatedly do this. In the negative, that would be with may. In the positive, of course, it would be do this, keep doing this, start doing this. That would be the present imperative, either with the negative may or the positive. If in just regular imperative, so we're not emphasizing the process, the positive is going to be an aorist imperative, do this. But the negative is often a subjunctive instead of just a negative imperative. So we get a may plus the aorist subjunctive instead of the may with the imperative, the aorist imperative. So Luke 11:4, we have do not bring. Romans 10:6, we have do not say. Matthew 10:5, we have do not go out or do not enter. And in all those cases, the Greek has used may with the subjunctive. I tend to think that this softens the command a bit, but I could be wrong about that. Especially because the next one is the emphatic negative future. So normally, if you're going to say this is not going to happen, you use an oo with the indicative future. However, sometimes it's made more emphatic by using oo may and the aorist subjunctive. So Mark 13:30 is this generation will definitely not pass away. Ou me pareilthe. So it emphasizes it. John 6:37, we have I will definitely not drive away. Sometimes ume is used with the future as well, like in Matthew 26:5 or 35. I will never deny you. Finally, we have the conditionals. Like I said, that's if then clauses, if this, then that. We haven't covered those yet. We'll get to chapter 20. There's a whole bunch of combinations there that we have to look at that get translated a little bit differently, that have slightly different meanings. So we'll save that use of the subjunctive for chapter 20. Let's look at these translations. We have hopu eiltho. This is an example of the deliberative subjunctive. We have a question here, and so we translate it as, where should I go? In number 2, we have me exeilthete. This is an example of a prohibition, and so we're going to translate it as do not leave, do not go. Number 3, we have ume hypagagosin. This is an example of the emphatic negative. We have the ume with the subjunctive, and it's they will not depart. They will never depart. They're not going to leave. And then number 4, we have doxadzomen ton tu cosmu kurion. Notice the genitive kind of embedded in the accusative there. And this is another example of, well, no, actually, it's our first example of an exhortation. Let us glorify the Lord of the world. Number 5, we have ti akusomen tu didaskalu. It's a question. This is another example of the deliberative subjunctive. And so it's something along the lines of what should we, or why rather, why should we listen to the teacher? And then number 6 is Zetomen, Hagian, Zoen, and this is another example of the hortatory subjunctive. We have that first person plural form, and so it's let us seek a holy life. That's the end of the teaching on the subjunctive. We will do the halfway examples and the exercises A together in class. Make sure you let me know if you have any questions that I haven't answered. Take care.